All right. Let me add my welcome to everyone. It's certainly a strange and unusual way to have an annual meeting, at least for me, an annual meeting of a nonprofit, but hopefully we'll be able to share a lot of information about the museum, where we've been, where we are now, and where we hope to go in the future. That's basically the format tonight. And let me begin by reminding you or telling you about some of the high points of our last year. As has been the case in the past, the centerpiece of our programming was probably our tall ship visit last summer, the new or now Santa Maria, another Spanish galleon replica. Hopefully you all got a chance to go aboard, come to one of the parties, see it anyway. That was last summer. Into the late summer, early fall, thanks to some wonderful work by Sean Palmatier and Kevin McDonald and Justin Thomas and others, we mounted a wonderful pottery exhibit in the Moseley Gallery. That was guest curated by Justin Thomas, who's a local collector of historic pottery. And it featured a workshop by Rick Hamlin, a potter who produced and performed at a wonderful outdoor back lawn workshop. Joan Whitlow and Sean Palmatier came on in September as director and assistant director, respectively. And no sooner did they come through the door when they were put to work. We were gearing up for roof work, new slate roof work. So it fell to the lot of Joan and Sean to go up into the attic and secure the materials that were stored there. We've always stored a lot of our collection materials that we aren't exhibiting in the attic, as well as other things. And all of that had to be secured, covered in plastic, so it wouldn't be damaged by the roof work that was going on above. So I don't know how many weeks that took, but I'm sure Joan and Sean felt it was an awful lot of them. But they did a great job. They got it all secured on time for the roofers to come later in the fall. Other highlights of the year, we continued with Jeanette Isabella's wonderful conservation fund. We now have conserved 6 paintings, thanks to Jeanette and her ability to put together the donors that contribute to that, and that will be ongoing. We mounted a wonderful exhibit of Richard Jones's paintings in the hallway. Most of you, I hope most of you have seen Richard's work, if not at the museum, then elsewhere. Richard specializes in historic landscapes and paintings, particularly of Newburyport themes. And that was wonderful. Coast Guard, once again, was featured in our programming for the year in several different ways. There's the annual Admiral Rybacki Award that takes place in the summer. Thanks to Bob Dignan for doing a wonderful job putting that together and hosting it. We hosted a retirement party for the Sector 1, one of the Coast Guard officers in Sector 1. In May, we were fortunate to have Sean Crahan, who's the station chief at Station Merrimack, and one of his colleagues come and do a talk and a video on the surfmen. Station Merrimack features surfmen who are specially trained Coast Guardsmen who are able to handle the bar at the Merrimack River and other dangerous surf places like that. It was a wonderful talk. Those are just some of the high points. As usual, we had a number of rental events, weddings, and others. We hosted the Preservation Trust annual award. the usual things that we do, and we continue to do them. I did want to mention, because it's always a high point of my season at the museum, the invitation night play that Kate Gilbert puts on 2 nights in December, the 2 invitation nights in Newburyport. And that's always well attended. And once again, it was last year. I want to circle back now to the slate roof project. We were awarded a little over $100,000 from the city to put a new slate roof on the building. The award was in 2018. Because of various scheduling issues and delays, we finally got the roofers here in the late fall of 2019 to begin the work. Took a little over a month. And we decided that, this is a big deal for us, a new slate roof. We're not going to do this every day, every year, hopefully not again in my lifetime. So we decided, we want to memorialize this. So we hired a drone to fly over and collect drone footage. And we have other video footage as well. And having done that, we felt, well, that's all good, but why don't we see if we can put together a short video that tells the story of the slate roof work and tells a little bit of the story of the museum. So I'd like to share with you the slate roof video, and I will now mute and leave the video, and I'll rely on Jack to get the slate roof video going.
Now, just to add, because I neglected to do this, we are recording the meeting. So to be legally compliant, I want to make everybody aware of the fact that we are recording our annual meeting. And here's the video.
My name's Greg Calling. I'm an architect with Merrimack Design Architects, and I've always had an interest in institutional work, particularly museums. I'm now working on the Custom House Maritime Museum. It is Newburyport's most important historical asset in terms of architecture. This austere, dignified granite building, it's an icon. It's part of the identity of the city of Newburyport. The building has a colorful history. It originally was a custom house that was owned by the federal government, and they operated it as a post office where they collected customs before taxation. And then the building was sold and it was turned into a shoe factory. And after that, it fell into disrepair. Most of the windows were gone. The roof was collapsing. There were salvage submarine parts apparently sticking out of the windows at one point. In 1972, the building was taken over by eminent domain. They chose to put slate on the roof, and the slate installers didn't install the slates to specifications, so the vertical joints between the slates were spaced too closely together. It's always the first priority with preserving a historic building is to keep the water out. Over the years, I've built up a lot of knowledge about the building, and I was asked to oversee the slate roof replacement project. We were fortunate to have this slate roofing contractor who grew up in the business. His father was a slate roofer.
I'm pretty passionate about my trade. I'm a third-generation roofing contractor. I learned this trade from my dad, who learned from his dad. That's all I've ever done. The project took about 8 weeks. We took the entire slate roof off, re-nailed the roof deck, inspected it, and made repairs as necessary.
And then they put 6 feet of ice and water shield on the roof, and then they put 30-pound felt up the rest of the roof.
That made it temporarily watertight, and then we re-slated the roof using a new modeled slate from Vermont. It's just very rewarding to come onto a structure like this and literally resurrect the roof, take it off, put a new roof on that you know your kids and grandkids probably aren't going to have to go up there and touch it.
The Custom House is important to this community because of its maritime history and its central commerce and activity on the waterfront in Newburyport. It's interesting, it's a Greek Revival building, and that style was employed to represent continuity of history and this classical ideal of democracy and government. it's wonderful that it's still an integral part of the community here and that it's been repurposed to become a museum of maritime history. And now we have a 100-year slate roof.
So this is a long-term investment for the building. It's beautiful. When you're done with these particular jobs that we do, they just look beautiful.
And it's important to emphasize that the work's not done. It's important that we take the next step and preserve the collections now that we've made a step forward with the preservation of the building.
That video is the talents of Gabe Gerzen. He is the senior producer at Matter. He took that raw footage, asked those questions, got those people to speak that normally would be very intimidated in front of the camera, and he crafted a wonderful story. So we're very pleased to have had that done. Besides a lot of the work that we did on the exterior of the building, the winter was a time for us to look and review some of the softer elements of an organization. Try to make some improvements with the computer systems, review the security, look at the workflows, and also the daily operations. We've been very busy. But one of the fortunate things that we've been able to do is to work with Rory Nolan. Rory is the senior copywriter and coordinator of many of the staff that we have been working with Matter. Rory has taken our iconic logos and has expanded them to a new level of branding. Rory called upon the creativity of his colleague, Ashkan Salihi, who is the graphic and interactive designer, and Nick Barkley, who is the creative director. Rory, would you like to present?
Evening, everyone. Let me just share the screen. So yeah, we stepped up and redid the Custom House Maritime Museum's branding, and we kicked it off with what we love to do is kick everything off with a narrative. So for this, we wrote this little bit. Stewards of your history. It's about where we've been, where we are, where we're going. It's about who we are, who we were, and who we will become. From High Street to the shores of the Merrimack, the neighborhoods of Newburyport are steeped in maritime history, rich with the stories of the people who helped build this city, explore these waters, and found our nation. From its settlement to its rise as a maritime hub to its rebirth, we're here to tell its story, to share its legacy, to show you how you're a part of where we will go. We are the Custom House Maritime Museum, the stewards of your maritime history. Join us as we bring our past to life. And with that, I'd like to introduce Nick Barkley, who is our creative director. Unless he needs to be unmuted. Would somebody please unmute Nick Barkley? I do not seem to be able to do it.
Yeah, I've got that. Hold on, I'm looking through the
Thank you.
participants.
I think it works right now.
Perfect.
There we go.
There we go.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm listed as Olive. I'm using her computer at the moment. Yes, it's been such a pleasure to work on this brand. So we're so excited about this. You can see what we did with the logo that Ashkan designed is we really wanted to carry that maritime theme throughout the whole brand and really infuse it within the brand. And the main element you could see in our design here is that iconic building. Like there was no way that we couldn't leverage that building as a central element that was key to the history and the heritage. And it's just so iconic that we really needed to leverage it. Graphically, we're going with a seal approach here, which is a little bit more dynamic, and it feels like it takes a bit of a nod to history with that. And another way that we've done that is to leverage a woodcut style in the logo, which really plays off of the idea of the wind and the movement. And you could see around the outside circle, we've actually incorporated that into a rope, which is another nice way to play off of that, that motif. Rory, if you want to move to the next logo, The previous logo is really the primary logo, and this logo is that set as a simplified logo set. Again, you have a horizontal and a vertical version just based off of use cases and when you'd want to use it. But one of the
Did we lose them?
side or a watermarked or an embossed seal on a really nice invitation. And if you go to the next page, Rory, these are some kind of secondary alternative versions of the logo that kind of give the museum a little bit more flexibility for how they want to leverage the brand. These are all in black and white right now. It's just kind of base level sets. But if you go back up to page 6, Rory, this is the color palette that we landed on, which really just has a very natural feel to it. Lots of blues that really kind of lean into the idea of the blue sky and the ocean that are so prominent around the museum. And then having this kind of warmer color here as a bit of a nod to some of the warmer grasses that are around, and is a nice complement, a contrast to those blues. We're really proud of it. We're so excited that the team decided to go with this logo, because we were excited and trying not to be too persuasive to try to get them to go with it, but they fell in love with it. So we were so excited. So thank you.
I wanted to just say that all of this work and the design to showcase the Customs House Maritime Museum has been made possible by Scott Signori, Principal and CEO of Matter. This branding really allows us to not only create new merchandise for our shop, but also allows us to really set an identity step forward as to who the Customs House Maritime Museum, and not only our publications, but in all of our media as well. So Scott actually allocates a percentage of the employees' time to donate their expertise to other nonprofits. So all of this work has been at a no cost to the museum, which we're really graciously humbled to receive. Can you imagine a world if everyone was compensated to donate their skills to help another individual, organization, and cause? So we really do appreciate the time and guidance that they've given, and it's been a pleasure to work not only with you, Rory, but all of your colleagues, and we hope to continue to do so. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. It's been wonderful working with your team, and I can't wait to come into the museum to see how everything's looking.
Well, we're going to get there. That's sort of my next segue. So that couldn't have been scripted better. So besides the exterior improvement and the software necessary infrastructure, we have been busy with the gallery renovations. Sean Palmatier, Assistant Director, and I set out with goals in mind, but none of this would have been achieved without Sean's many talents, the person responsible for the conceptualization, the curation, and the installation of all of these new exhibits. Can you put up, Jack, the exhibit? The slides that you're about to see are also Sean's creation. It's sort of a flyover scrapbook style of the changes from start to finish. And it's moving a little too quickly because I wanted to go over some of the goals that we had in mind. So please go back if you can, and I'll just put you on the timer or ask you to move forward. So our goals for the exhibition were to make safe and present the objects in a more clean and compelling arrangement. Our other goals were to make the galleries more comprehensive and thematic. Next slide, please. To use the museum's objects in its archives to present a broader range of materials. A goal to delve deeper into the stories related to the Customs House and to Newburyport. Next slide, please. We wanted to focus on aspects of life aboard ship or in port, and to tell by people less typically represented in the displays. Next slide. To group objects to bring a story to life instead of telling a story about one object. And lastly, a goal to make smaller vignettes to allow for frequent changes to showcase more collections. Now, I know most people only see the beginning and sort of the end results, and we're really excited when we do open to have people see the new museum. But we also wanted to convey the amount of work and all the variety of people that have a play in bringing this all together. So yes, again, a special shout out to our colleagues at Matter, because they set up a time-lapse camera in the corner of the Moseley Gallery. And if you'd like to start that, they took a frame picture every 10 seconds. Again, we're just so grateful to have that opportunity to capture that, because that's something I think would be any person doing installation and exhibits can relate to. But also a special thanks to Jesse Manfra and Jesse Sherman, who came over and took out those time cards every week. We started the project, we shut everything down for several weeks. We started back up again, practicing all the social distancing and safeguards. So we could share this with you now. And not quite finished, but it will be in the next couple of days. So thank you. Next, I'd like to introduce Mike Loreno. Mike Loreno is the treasurer. Mike?
Hey, everyone. So I took on the role of treasurer of the board last year, and to help understand our current and projected fiscal status, it probably helps to provide some context. So 2019, I want to talk about first. We saw a lot of changes for the museum, and you've heard all of this already, but I want to kind of bring it together in this context. So obviously we brought on a new executive director and an assistant director, and they promptly set about doing some much needed work on the building. The slate roof, which had been scheduled for replacement for some time, was finally embarked on. Though expensive, we did receive a grant, which will reimburse us for much of that expense. We haven't received those funds yet, but they are expected to be received later this year. We did continue upgrading the store. We undertook a massive campaign of cleaning both the basement and attic, cataloging and better preserving valuable artifacts while disposing a lot of worthless junk. For those of you who were reading your emails all year, you heard a little bit about that. We also put on a very successful Newburyport Maritime Days, further cementing that as our biggest fundraiser. Later in the year, on the flip side, we chose to drop an older successful fundraiser, the Holiday House Tour. While it was popular with the community, it wasn't really a great fit for the mission and goals of the museum, and it was an awful lot of work. Over the past few years, between both seated table dinners and Newburyport Maritime Days, we've created other successful fundraisers which both engage the community and are tied to our mission and are better uses of our limited time and resources. So all in all, while revenue did decline a little bit from the prior year, we ended the year reasonably well financially. We went into this year, 2020, with a budget that provided for the completion of all the renovations, as well as for funding for some great things new in terms of programs and the aforementioned fundraiser, seated table, and maritime days, as well as other events meant to engage and inspire the community. And then the realities of COVID-19 set in, and we had to modify our outlook a little bit. So in early March, we quickly set about creating a new critical spend budget. And what I mean by that is figuring out what needs to be done to keep the museum going and alive, and in this environment, what is no longer necessary. So with this new critical spend budget in place, we had to take into account the unfortunate reality that we may not be able to host any events for the rest of the year. And with temporary but open-ended closure of the museum to the public, we're able to take advantage of the downtime to accelerate the renovations, which otherwise would have taken a much longer time to accomplish. So as a result, the museum has effectively been completely overhauled physically. While this came at some expense, our critical spend budget has us basically breaking even for the year. So that's good news. Helping to balance the budget, it needs to be stated that we did apply for and receive a loan under the Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, much easier to say, and we'll be seeking forgiveness for the loan once those funds have been used. We don't have the books closed for May yet, but I can tell you that through April, we were tracking pretty close to budget, almost dead on, as a matter of fact. And we fully expect to achieve at least a break-even performance from a profit perspective this year. While that may not sound particularly exciting, it's worthwhile to note that many organizations cannot do that in this environment and are really struggling. So we're fortunate in that we can manage fiscally, even while accelerating and completing the ambitious building projects. Also, we created event budgets for Maritime Days and Seated Table. And while those events, Maritime Days, we will not be able to do, obviously, it would typically have happened already. Seated Table, we would expect to do in the fall. That may still happen. We have these budgets, they've been created, and also as well for some other events, which we hope to get to and we'll announce at a later date. We effectively have a plan in place and can move quickly when we can safely host members in the community. One final note on the financials, I'd be remiss for not noting the safety of the endowment. As of the trough of the market, which had occurred back on March 23rd, the S&P 500, which we use as a benchmark for the performance of our endowment funds, was down by over 30%. Our endowment fund at the same point had declined only by about 12%. So we were substantially insulated from the volatility of the market. And as of now, we're just about back to where we were before the decline. In fact, it's just very, very close to where we were before the decline. So once again, we're fortunate in that while we're certainly heavily impacted by the pandemic and won't likely get ahead anytime soon from a fiscal perspective, at least we're not losing our financial resources. So that wraps up our fiscal position. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about Ken Jackman. For those new members or anyone who hasn't previously attended one of our annual meetings, you may not be aware, board members of the museum can serve up to 2 3-year terms, at the end of which they have to step down. So these term limits mean that no one, no matter what their contributions to the museum, can serve indefinitely. Ken Jackman and Tom Gould recently hit their limits. You'll hear about Tom in a few minutes, but I'm here to talk to you about Ken. Ken Jackman came to the Custom House with a clear evolutionary vision for the museum. Many of the things I spoke about in the fiscal overview stand much improved or simply exist largely due to Ken's vision and his hard work to make it so. Newburyport Maritime Days and Seated Table are both successful, replicable, well-received events which helped the museum expand its footprint and engage the community. The endowment was placed under new management, which safeguarded our funds from the recent volatility. And speaking of assets, our most valuable asset, the building itself, we now own. These things, Ken's significant contributions to all of these things, and so much more, has made a huge impact on this organization. Ken, as a person, for those of you who don't really know him, he's ambitious, he's energetic. I mean, he has huge energy. He has an infectious enthusiasm and a great sense of humor. He works hard and he likes to have fun while doing it. He also has an incredible ability to work a room, and he uses that in combination with his sense of humor, the energy, the infectious enthusiasm to be a truly engaging MC, something I think we all appreciate and will miss. Ken leaves the museum extremely well situated, and those who served with him on the board are inspired and still very much engaged. Thank you, Ken. On the screen, what you're seeing is an award of sorts. It's a small token of our appreciation for Ken. This has been constructed out of slate from the roof. It's I should say a two of a kind. I almost said one of a kind. There are two. But this one, it's an etching, obviously, of the building onto the slate with a beautiful gold border. There is a engraved plaque on the back, which you can't see, which calls out some of the contributions which Ken made and shows our appreciation. Thank you again, Ken.
Next, we turn to Tom Gould. Tom is the other board member who has timed out. And I hope most of you have met and spent some time with Tom. In addition to Tom's board service, he served as our corporate secretary for a number of years. And I've never met a man who was more generous with his time and his treasure than Tom. When we were without an executive director, from April of 2019 to September of 2019, Tom was in the museum more than 1 or 2 days a week. He was there on Sundays to help cover, just to be there. As I say, he was incredibly generous with his time. And we're fortunate that Tom has indicated that he wants to continue to volunteer at the museum. He's very interested in developing and organizing our archives, of which there are considerable number. In addition to what I've mentioned, Tom has been a regular at the First Fridays, pouring wine. Hopefully he's poured a glass or two for each of you. I know he has for me. But I also need to mention Alice Gould, because I think without Alice, Tom would have not been able to contribute and do all the wonderful things he has. Alice has been a volunteer as well, First Fridays and other venues. Alice also volunteers at the Museum of Old Newbury. And the two of them, Tom and Alice, have been a wonderful duo for us, and hopefully that will continue on into the future. Now, Tom will also be receiving, I don't know if it looks exactly like the one that Mike just showed you, but Tom will also be receiving a plaque. Let's see, oh, there it is. Looks the same to me, but they're really great. These were done by Michael Updike. Many of you are familiar with Michael's work. He's a sculptor, an artist, and slate is one of his favorite media. And you see the result of it here. So thank you, Tom, and thank you, Alice, for making Tom available to us in the way you have. I want to mention before I close that if you haven't seen the slates, we also have produced smaller versions of slate work for sale in the gift shop, trivets and coasters and the like. So when we're open again, please come in, buy a set of coasters if you like, and you can own a piece of the old roof. These were made from the old roof slates that came off the roof when we did our new slate work. So thank you, Tom. Thank you, Ken, and God bless you. I think I have one more thing I need to do. I need to introduce Bob Dignan, our current corporate clerk or secretary, who will take us through the business part of tonight's meeting. the election of officers. So Bob, take over.
Thanks, Doug. As Doug mentioned, my name is Bob Dignan. I'm currently the clerk of the Newburyport Maritime Society. Elected to that position back in March, and have served as the acting clerk since last summer, assisting Tom Gould, who it has been a pleasure to assist, and I'm really going to miss his sage advice on matters concerning the museum, as well as Ken Jackman's infectious enthusiasm for all things Custom House. This evening, the members get to elect new board members, as well as confirm current board members for a second 3-year term. So because of the situation we find ourselves in with lockdowns and social distancing, we decided to go with the virtual meeting. And I believe for the first time in the museum's history, we sent out proxy votes asking each member to vote on 2 new board members. We mailed 320 ballots. We received 120 back. For Jennifer Germain and George Hazeltine. Both Jen and George are already pillars of the Newburyport community. I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, know them. Jen's a local realtor and George is a local builder and developer. Both very fine individuals, and we're very happy to have them step up and volunteer to be board members. So of the 120 ballots that we've received, Jen Germain received 112 votes. George received 105 votes, and they are duly elected to the board of directors of the Newburyport Maritime Society. Also this evening, both Doug Muir and Elizabeth Lorraine have come to the end of their first 3-year terms. And we are asking the members at this meeting to re-elect them to a second 3-year term. And to do that, I'm going to ask you all to move your mouse to the bottom ribbon where it says participants. It should say 21 participants. If you click on that, a ribbon will come up on the right-hand side of your screen. And at the bottom, there is a green check for yes and a red check for no. And I ask members please to check yes or no for the slate of Elizabeth and Doug for a second 3-year term. We'll give people a couple more seconds to vote, to navigate their way around their computers. And we have, we can close the vote out now. We have majority of members have voted in the affirmative. No members have voted no. And so Doug and Elizabeth are duly elected to each to a second 3-year term as directors of the Newburyport Maritime Society. At this time, it's also my pleasure to introduce the officers of the corporation for the coming year. Susan Bernhard, who has been indefatigable in working for the museum, particularly during Newburyport Maritime Days last year, which was a 10-day marathon with the now Santa Maria, is stepping up to be the new president. Jack Santos, a great addition to the board of directors, has become the vice president. Mike Loreno is returning as our treasurer. Mike just gave a great presentation. And I'm serving as the clerk. And with that, I am going to close out and turn the meeting back over to Jack Santos.
Thanks, Bob. Well, appreciate it, and fine job. Excellent use of Zoom and the voting techniques there. I'm very impressed. So I'm been asked to speak about the programming that we see coming in the coming year, and how we're going to respond to some of the challenges with the coronavirus, and maybe stepping up our virtual presence. So first, without saying it, First Fridays, that's kind of the most popular event that we have here at the Custom House Maritime Museum every first Friday of the month. We see that in the future as being a combination of virtual and lawn-based First Fridays. We're still working through what they're going to look like through the remainder of the year. Of course, practicing appropriate social distancing when we do them physically on the lawn. And when we do them on the lawn, we will live stream and post them on YouTube for later viewing. So that's important, and it'll be a facet of what we do in the coming year around First Fridays. The speakers will continue to focus on the exhibits that we have, some of the upcoming attractions and exhibits, and also special speakers with topics of interest to Newburyport maritime history, and the community. If we have it indoors, eventually, we'll have a much more comfortable Moseley Gallery, as you may have seen in some of the pictures that Joan showed, with an even better screen and projector setup and more seating. So look forward to that. I can't wait till the museum opens up, and the top to bottom change that's been made in every gallery. It's really exciting, and particularly for the Moseley Gallery, it'll make the First Friday that much more comfortable. Virtual First Fridays, those of you that have been following along, as soon as this hit, we clicked into virtual mode with Virtual First Fridays. It's been an overwhelming success. Amazingly, we've had nationwide participation from current and former Newbury porters. 79 people in the first one, including people from Texas, North Carolina, and California. And we sold out our second Virtual First Friday with over 100 people, hitting that 100 person limit. And we're looking at increasing that for our follow-on events and follow-on First Fridays. The Tavern exhibit is coming up as soon as we open our doors. Every year we change an exhibit. Last year was the Merrimack Valley Pottery and Potters, which got national attention and exposure. So we were really excited about that. This year, Sean Palmetier, our assistant ED curator, he's put together an exhibit that focuses on an early American tavern, the social nexus of New England communities from the 17th through the 19th century. I love the title that he gave to this: Entertainment for Man and Horse, Victuals, Libations, and Distractions in an Early American Tavern, which will be set up in the Bushy Gallery and to look just like a early American tavern. And over the course of the year, we'll be planning on programs of food, drink, music, storytelling, beer tastings, and an American gaming night. So I'm really looking forward to it, excited about that. With the current COVID virus situation, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about what we're doing to respond to this new normal. And besides First Fridays, we're really looking at more opportunities to increase virtual engagement, because that increases Customs House value to the community, and even just as importantly, it broadens our appeal geographically and to younger audiences. So an example of that, if you haven't been following along, every other Friday on Zoom, it gets posted on social media. I host a trivia contest, Yeet Eat, Don't Tell Me, along with Colleen Turner-Sakino from the Museum of Old Newbury, and we're going to continue to expand that to include other local historical nonprofits that will participate. We end that show, it's a fun show, it's kind of based on Wait, Don't Tell Me, and we end it with a prize that gets that a participant wins. So be sure to follow along and tune into that. It's just another example of how we're broadening our virtual engagement. We'll have more Zoom meetings and YouTube and Facebook simulcasts on specific topics of interest. And we're working on a redesigned website. It's really just the beginning of a totally enhanced web-based experience that will roll out over the next few years. It will include eventually an online virtual tour, but that kind of was based on something we just recently did. It started with our pirate social media program. As soon as we shut down the museum, we let a pirate loose in the hallways, and we released videos and posts of his strolling about the corridors on YouTube, his Instagram, and on our website. It was really accepted well. Got a lot of traction on that, and we're going to continue that and expand a virtual tour program of the museum. We're also going to enhance our YouTube website so that all those videos and events, you can always look them up. If you miss them, go to the YouTube site and you can look them up. This will get posted on YouTube, and there are also the pirate videos are up on YouTube as well. And finally, the store. That's the real gem of Newburyport and of the Custom House, is the store. And why limit shopping to just when you're in the Custom House, especially when the Custom House is closed? Yeah, we're looking at an online virtual store for gifts and historical Newburyport related shopping. Slate, trivets, and coasters, you saw examples of them. Doug mentioned it. They're hot sellers. Here's one of them. Really good. They come in the larger coaster, the trivet size, and a smaller coaster size, and great Christmas gifts. But you shouldn't have to live near Newburyport to buy one. So when we go online and enhance our online store and marketing capability, we'll see more people taking advantage of that. So that's kind of what we see happening in the coming months. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Susan Bernhardt, our board chairperson, on what else we could expect for 2020.
All right, I just need to get off that video. I am here, I just can't find my video, sorry. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Jack. Thanks, Bob, for the kind words. Thank you, everyone, for joining our first Zoom annual meeting. Isn't it reassuring that even a pandemic will not stop the Newburyport Maritime Museum from electing new directors to its board? I would like to welcome Jennifer and George to the board. As I believe Bob mentioned, both the business owners who bring a strong sense of community and multiple skill sets that will strengthen and grow the Custom House Maritime Museum. George is ready and willing to start helping, and we're excited to get him on programs. Jennifer has already jumped in by sponsoring and being part of the pirate video that Jack just mentioned, which I hope you've all seen and enjoyed. If you haven't seen it, please check it out on the website. It showcases some of the collection while entertaining the Newburyport residents who were shut in during the pandemic. It also provided a vehicle to donations. So a big thank you to Jen, Elizabeth Grant, and the entire pirate video team. They did an awesome job. What do we see for 2020? We see the museum opening in phase 3, which is the end of June, beginning of July. We'll follow the guidelines set by the CDC, the state, and the city of Newburyport. We do see a slow reopening with probably adjusted hours, scheduled tours, and reservations. We see ourselves continuing to be good neighbors by helping Newburyport businesses while being responsible stewards to the museum. 2020 will be a challenge, but one the board and the executive staff has already begun to handle. You've heard from Michael in March when COVID shut down the state, the board immediately acted. We restructured to a critical spend with the help of the Newburyport Bank. We applied and were approved for a PPP loan. Virtual events, as Jack mentioned, were quickly created to support our members and also to support the residents of Newburyport. Revenue is always a major focus for us, but due to COVID-19, it's going to be more of a challenge. The funding to run the Custom House comes from many sources: membership, visitors, grants, sponsorships, estates, donations, and fundraising. The fall of 2019, we were faced with a major decision. After 25 successful years, the board made the difficult decision that due to limited time, limited volunteers, we needed to give up the Holiday House Tour. So in keeping with our mission, we would focus on Maritime Days, and which was our major fundraiser. We are grateful to all the volunteers who over the past 25 years gave their time and talent for making the Holiday House Tour a success. A special thank you goes to Kristen Hunter, Nancy Griffin, Mary Beth Pelletier for all your hard work. It's much appreciated. Did I mention Maritime Days? We did focus on Maritime Days. We started early. We connected with several ships that met the Merrimack River depth requirement. We worked for weeks honing the list of candidates, negotiating for the best ship. We were hours away, hours from signing a contract with the Oliver Hazard Perry to bring the Oliver Hazard Perry to Newburyport for Maritime Days 2020 when COVID-19 hit, put everything on hold. The OHP and Custom House teams communicated frequently until the time came when we needed to cancel Maritime Days 2020. A disappointment? Of course. But a contract wasn't signed, so no money was lost. And next year, if the virus is under control, we already have a start for negotiations. We continue to work and develop fundraising opportunities, both physical and virtual. And it's our hope we'll be able to host a safe seated table in this late summer, early fall, and maybe a second one, spring of 2021. As mentioned, I think Michael mentioned, we have a new holiday fundraising idea, which we're working on. A committee is working on developing, and once more information is available, we'll share it with you. We continue to apply for grants and scholarship, sponsorships, which will support our programs and events. This in turn supports our members, visitors in the city of Newburyport. I'm happy to share we received tavern exhibit sponsorship from the Boland Trust and the Newburyport Bank. Thank you to both organizations for their support of the museum. But we're not stopping there. We continue to seek sponsorship for the tavern exhibit, internship program, and hopefully a virtual educational program. We are grateful to our sponsors, donors, and every dollar in volunteer service, such as Matter provided, helps keep our staff, open our exhibits, run events, all of which brings visitors and members into the museum. We continue to promote membership and ask for your help with this promotion. My goal is to have all Newburyport residents a member of the Custom House Maritime Museum, but not only the Custom House. I would like them to be members of all the local nonprofits. The Custom House to us is like a family with many branches, the nuclear family, the museum's strong executive staff. Joan, Sean, Maureen, directors and staff. We have the artifacts that have been passed down through the family, artifacts that relatives use to tell family history, much like our docents and researchers and volunteers. We have family gatherings, First Fridays, lectures, music, performances, and teas. We have relatives we have lost touch with, but we desire to meet again, such as past directors and volunteers. Most of all, I think of the family stories, the stories of the building, the glory days, the disrepair days, to the new repair days, the stories of the galleries, past stories to the stories of the new renovations and new exhibits, the stories of the collection, which are made up of not only of the artifacts, which, by the way, are leaving the attic for the first time in many years, but also our members, both past and present. Every member brings their experience, their story. Each of you has a Custom House Maritime Museum story to tell. Will you share your story with us? We hope you will. And for people like me who don't remember as much as we once did, we hope you'll let us record it. What will 2020 be at the Custom House Maritime Museum? Well, with your help, it'll be another year of welcoming and supporting family and friends, neighbors and visitors through history, art, culture, and social distancing. Thank you. At this time, I ask all directors, Joan and Sean, to open their video so we can introduce those you haven't met.
And people could probably put them in gallery view and see them better.
Yeah, if you can see gallery, I know you've met Bob and you've met Doug and you've met Mike, but on should be Elizabeth Lorraine, Jen Germain, and George Hazelton. I believe Tom Strickler is the only one who isn't here, and our Assistant Executive Director, Sean Pelletier. I will return it back over. Thank you all, and I return it back to Jack Santos for any questions that may have arisen.
And we got a smaller group here, so I'm gonna, if people want to unmute themselves and ask a question, let's go ahead. You can go ahead and unmute and ask a question, or you can put a question in chat, and I'm monitoring in the chat. You can send it to everyone or just send it to me, and we'll try to answer it. But if there's anybody who knows what's going on around with the Custom House, it's certainly this group that's on the screen right now.
That's for sure. I don't see any chats. Do you, Jack?
Nope.
All right. I think that's it. Thank you all for joining us. We hope to see you soon. But in the meantime, you may get a call or an email from a director just checking in to see how you are. And we look forward to seeing you soon, hopefully.
And next month's first Friday, if that's.
Oh, yes. Hopefully you'll be outside. God willing.